Hello, folks. And the mass liquidation of James Wynn, the hyper liquid trader of $1.24 billion long, has gotten people to talk a lot about whales that are hunting for liquidations. Now, 1.24 billion is a lot of money, but not when you compare it to Lord Michael Saylor and his stash of 574,000 bitcoins, which I think are worth over $50 billion at this point. So if he gets hunted and destroyed and liquidated, that is the end of all life on Earth. And we need to know if that's going to happen or not and make preparations if that were to happen. Now, unlike James Wynn, Michael Saylor is not buying Bitcoin on 50x leverage. He is actually buying spot, so he can't actually get squeezed out. He basically buys on OTC by raising money from bonds and stock offerings. However, there's a caveat in there, and if things go very, very south, Microstrategy could be left out of money and be forced to liquidate its Bitcoin in order to pay back the bondholders. And that, like I said, would be the end of all life on Earth. So given that option, we have to be sure that that does not happen. So let's take a look as to whether that will happen or not and how likely it is. So the biggest thing we're concerned about is this. There are MicroStrategy notes. I mean, it's called strategy now, but we're going to continue calling it MicroStrategy because strategy is a dumb name. MicroStrategy has issued convertible senior notes due in 2028. Specifically, there's an offering of 0.625 convertible senior notes due on September 15th, 2028. Remember that date. That is more than 3 years from now. So let's actually look at the chart of their bonds. Now, there's 3 bonds that matured before the September 2028 one. However, 2 of them have already been called. And those are the June 2028 ones and the December 2025 ones. Those have been called. Those have been resolved. Not a big deal for those. This one might have been scary, the 6.125 interest rate bonds, but those are done. And of course, this one might look scary, February 2027. That is just less than 2 years from now. This one has no interest, however, and those have actually been redeemed in February of this year. They've been converted to shares. So this one is also kind of gone. If you really look at it, like January 21st, 2025, they actually redeemed in February. So MicroStrategy to redeem 1.05 billion of 2027 convertibles. That's exactly what this is, 1.05 billion 2027 convertibles, and settle all conversion requests in shares. So we don't have to worry about this. This is effectively gone as well. So the next one we have to look at is this. This is the biggest one remaining. Amount $1 billion raised, 0.625 interest rate, but this is like a special type of bond, which is why they can get away with 0.265 interest rate. I'm guessing the next one in March 2030 is the same, but 2030, March is roughly 5 years away, and at more than 4 years away, you can probably gauge that Bitcoin is going to be at a higher price then than it is now. So we don't really have to worry about that. So the thing is, the September 2028 one is the one we actually have to worry about. And let's actually look at the conversion rate of the bond. So essentially, like through most of the life, holder can convert to stock if bonds trade 2%. Yeah, holder can convert to stock if bonds trade 2% below the implied conversion rate. Here, MSTR convert to cash if stock trades 30% over conversion price. So I think this is going to be this is value based on borrowed amount, and this is value based on share price. So, and we have here in September 2027, holder has right to convert to cash. I don't think they're going to take this option because most of them, I think, probably wants to convert to stock. I mean, that's kind of the attraction of offering a super low interest bond if they have the option to convert to stock. So for for all the life of the bond, holder can actually convert to stock. And holder only has the right to convert to cash in this small period. And of course, MicroStrategy can convert to cash if stock trades 30% over the conversion price. But the thing is, if the stock starts trading much, much higher, I think a lot of the bondholders in the later period will want to convert to stock because that would be a good deal for them. But the summary of the convertibility options, there's two that we need to look at. Who has the option? This one, bondholders. What can they convert to? MSTR shares at specific conversion ratio. And those are probably pretty favorable conversion ratios. So the description is bondholders have the right to convert their bonds for stock in MSTR. The right exists throughout the lifetime of the bond. However, in the initial period, the right can only be exercised if the bond trades at a 2% discount. I think this is like 80% of the life of the bond or more to the implied conversion value based on MSTR share price. So essentially, like if it holds, if the bonds or the price of the stock or the price of Bitcoin, essentially, because that's kind of, well, now if the bond trades at a 2% discount more or more to the implied conversion value based on MSTR's price. So essentially, like if people lose faith in the bond, which is, I don't really know if that's actually going to happen. That seems kind of unlikely. They can trade directly for shares. If such a discount does not exist, the bondholder can always sell the bond in the market. Towards the end of the life of the bond, this 2% rule no longer exists, and the bondholder can convert to stock regardless of the market price or bond. This is essentially to make sure that not everyone converts early and they have to hold for the lifetime of the bond to convert to stock. This basically locks people in because, essentially, like, I don't think that the bond's going to trade at a 2% discount. Maybe if Bitcoin dips a lot, but the bond's value is not dependent on Bitcoin. So unless people think MicroStrategy is somehow going bankrupt, I don't think this will actually happen. The other option is what we need to look at more. Who has the option? Bondholders. What can they convert to? Cash, based on the amount borrowed plus any unpaid accrued interest. So like description, at a specified date, bondholders have the right, which is I think like in September of 27, which is a little bit more than 2 years from now, bondholders have the right but not the obligation to demand cash from MicroStrategy. This is the scary part. The bondholders may demand this if the Bitcoin price has been weak. So essentially what we have, this is like this very very little snippet in here. And these were actually issued in September of 2024. So in September of 2024, essentially, like this was before the October pump. So I believe Bitcoin was still at 60 something thousand. So I think they could only demand this if Bitcoin is below around $65,000. So we're hoping in September 2027 that Bitcoin is not below $65,000 or thereabouts, or that the holders don't really demand the cash and would actually roll it over or just kind of like want the stocks instead. Because if they demand the cash and Bitcoin's below 65K, that I think would make MicroStrategy sell some of the Bitcoins, and that would be the end of all life on Earth. So this is the danger zone. But I think based on this, that if you want Bitcoin to be below 65K, and like specifically that small window in September of 2027, I think that's fairly unlikely. And I am not very worried about that. Now, the other option is MicroStrategy. Who has the option? MicroStrategy. Cash based on the amount borrowed plus any unpaid accrued interest, 0.625. On or after a specific date, the company has the right but not the obligation to redeem the bonds and pay the holders cash. This right can only be exercised if the stock trades over 30% above the conversion price. So like essentially if they redeemed, I think that the bondholders might be getting a premium. I'm not exactly sure. In any 30-day rolling window, I'm not really sure if this is going to trigger or not. If Bitcoin price is strong, the company may want to exercise this right. In the event of strong Bitcoin prices, bondholders may wish to convert their bonds for stock to avoid this early cash redemption system. So essentially, like realistically, I think the bondholders would much rather convert it to stock before MicroStrategy converts to cash, but it is a very kind of like a small window as well. So as far as we can tell, the conversion options are essentially the same, except for different prices and dates for 4 of the 5 bonds, with the exception of being zero coupon. With the exception of the zero coupon bond, holder of the zero coupon bond do not have the right to redeem for cash at any certain date unless there is a fundamental change in the business. In the event of falling Bitcoin prices, this could be a significant distinction. But what we actually discovered is like MicroStrategy actually did redeem the zero coupon bond about 2 months ago. This was written, obviously, before that. So essentially, I don't think based on this, I don't think there's that much of a chance that like things can actually go wrong. And more likely than not, MicroStrategy could take the advantage and convert to cash before the holders can actually convert to stock, which that might be a sting for holders. But if MicroStrategy does that, it might be really bad for their PR. So my guess is on this 2028 bond, the most likely thing to happen is that everyone will eventually hold until the end and then convert to stock at a big advantage to them. So I think like the cash redemption date, which is the only real danger date, can only happen in September 2027. And essentially, only if the Bitcoin price is weak. And remember, weak is compared to when they bought the bond, which means Bitcoin was at $65,000. So it has to be in that 1 month window, and they have to actually demand the cash. If they just demand stock or they demand to roll it over, that will actually not happen. So based on that, I don't think MicroStrategy is in any real trouble. So let me know if you disagree, like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.